I am super excited to welcome Lindsay Garlock. She's here with us, and we want to welcome all of you to the Mom to Mom program, where we gather virtually every second and fourth Tuesday to enjoy listening to and interacting with amazing speakers as they share their expertise on topics for moms. So thank you for joining us as we connect, inspire, and learn together. Lindsay, we're so excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So to start out, I love to have our speakers share a mom moment. Do you have a mom moment you'd like to share with us?
I do. So today's actually my birthday, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
just had Mother's Day on Sunday, right? Thank you. So happy Mother's Day to everyone. But last year, my birthday was on Mother's Day, and it will forever be probably one of my most special memories. My husband, John, found one of those worksheets online, the ones that for the kids to fill out, all about mom. This one said world's best mom at the top, and it had a bunch of questions for the kids to answer, like why you love mom and all your favorite things to do with mom. So he printed out one for each of our four kids and helped them answer the questions. And then he had me read them aloud. And the answers were just so cute and so funny and sweet. I was laughing, especially my 3-year-old. His answers were hilarious. But by the end, I mean, I could barely even read them because I was crying so much. I was feeling so loved. And then I get to the end of the stack, and at the back of the stack of papers, I realized that John had actually filled one out as well. He crossed out mom and changed it to wife. So it said world's best wife, which,
Oh,
made me cry even harder. And his answers were just so sweet and complimentary of me. And now, especially that I'm solo parenting, I love to have these notes that I can read anytime when I want to be reminded that I'm loved and I'm appreciated.
that is such a huge gift to have. As moms, you're usually unappreciated.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody says thank you, that kind of thing. So to have it in writing and to be able to go back and refer, that is super special. I love
Yeah.
that. What a great idea and how wonderful that he did that. My gosh. Okay, well, we're super excited to hear from Lindsay today. And let me read a little bit about her. So, Lindsay is from Boston, Massachusetts, and she and her late husband, John, have 4 beautiful children, ages 2 through 9. She is known on social media as the Acceptance Girl and teaches women in disheartening circumstances how to unlock serenity through the mindfulness practice of radical acceptance. She is passionate about addiction recovery and the 12 steps. She's a powerhouse solo parent and founder of numerous widow support groups, both online and in person. Her greatest desire is to model healthy grieving for her children and to share her experience, strength, and hope with others. So we're excited that today she has agreed to come and join us and share her journey and her experiences that she's gone through. So Lindsay, go ahead and give us your presentation. We're so excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much, Angela. I really am excited to be here. Welcome to everyone watching or listening. Thank you for being here also. I would love it if you would introduce yourself in the comments. Let me know where you're from and what phase of motherhood you're in. And maybe just tell us one thing you do to take care of yourself as a mother. May is Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month, and today I'm going to share my story of how practicing radical acceptance has impacted my life and my mental health for the better. As I mentioned, 1 year ago, I was celebrating my birthday and Mother's Day. My husband, John, and I were sitting out in the backyard watching the kids play in the bubbles, and we were talking about what it was going to be like moving into the next phase of life as a big kid family now that we were done having kids. And then, like a dark rain cloud that moves in out of the blue, just 3 days later, John unexpectedly died. Tuesday morning, he woke up with a fever. He spent the day in bed with typical cold and flu symptoms. And that night, I slept out on our sofa bed. And then on Wednesday morning, when I went into our room to check on him, he was gone. I was in shock. Even now, talking about it makes me shake a little bit. I never expected that overnight my whole world would get turned upside down with just one single event. It was traumatizing and exhausting in every way. But just 1 month later, I found myself sitting in a session with my therapist asking her, is there something wrong with me, or is it possible to skip right to acceptance? I'd been reading about the different grief models, many of which end in a final stage of acceptance, but I didn't feel like I'd really gone through the other stages. I was definitely grieving. I was sad and I missed John like crazy. But truthfully, I was already experiencing that state of acceptance that had been described. I was at peace. I felt like Paul in the Bible when he said, "We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair." And this is when it struck me that without knowing it, I had been preparing for this experience for a very long time. You see, I had been practicing radical acceptance for over 10 years, and it had become my MO, my go-to mindset. It was just my way of being. Radical acceptance had seen me through childhood chronic pain, heartache in my marriage, uncertainty and chaos of motherhood, my mom's ongoing cancer battle, and more. But it wasn't until I was navigating the statistically most stressful life event a person can experience that I realized what a true superpower acceptance was. Now, fast forward 1 year, I am so happy to be here today to report that I not only survived, but truly thrived in navigating the hardest year of my life. And I'm going to teach you the core principles of radical acceptance so that you can do the same. Now, you may not have lost a loved one, but I have no doubt that you've experienced your own lightning strike events as a mother and will continue to. And then in between the lightning strikes, we've still got our everyday little stuff we deal with, right? I've got a toddler that moves through my house like a tornado. That girl leaves a wake of destruction everywhere she goes. So have you been there? Have you found yourself overwhelmed by circumstances outside of your control that are stressful, exhausting, maybe even painful and scary? You've done everything you can to stay in control, but it feels like even that only makes your inner discontent worse. Take a minute to think about the situations you're facing as a mother right now that are really pushing you to your limit. And then in 1 or 2 words, share with me in a comment, what is your biggest challenge area right now? Is it family, maybe finances, or mental health? Go ahead and just type in the comments what you feel one of your biggest challenge areas is right now in your life as a mother. I'm just going to grab my slides real quick. Here we go. Russell Nelson said the joy we feel, and I would add peace, has little to do with the circumstances of our lives and everything to do with the focus of our lives. And this is where radical acceptance comes in. Radical acceptance is a distress tolerance skill that can actually change our emotional state. It's used to prevent stress from turning into suffering, and it's all in here. It's a mindset, an attitude, and it's my absolute favorite life hack. The theory of radical acceptance originated as a Buddhist teaching, and in the last century has been taught as a coping skill in DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy. It's also a key component in ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's a pillar in the 12-step program of addiction recovery, all 3 of which are empirically validated treatments, meaning there's actual scientific research to back them up and prove their effectiveness. So with radical acceptance, we kind of get the best of both worlds in that it's this ancient practice that feels very spiritual, and it's also been studied and really put under the microscope, so to speak, and proven itself effective. So to get started, let's just tackle a couple definitions. First is acceptance, or accept, which means to receive, the opposite being to refuse or reject. And what is it we're talking about accepting? Reality, facts, real things, things as they are. Another word for acceptance is willingness. So acceptance is a willingness to receive reality without refusing or rejecting it, without fighting against it, rather allowing it to be exactly what it is. So you may have been wondering, okay, well, what's the difference between acceptance and radical acceptance? How are those different things? Radical is a quality that means complete, total, absolute, extensive, profound, or serious. So the quality of acceptance that we want to practice is total, complete, not halfway, not wishy-washy or partial. It's 100%. It's the whole enchilada. Now, I don't want this to discourage you, like, okay, how am I ever going to be able to do that? Rather, I hope it will actually inspire you and illustrate the depth of love that is expressed when we fully accept something, whether that be ourselves, our life situations, our family members and friends, or anyone we come into contact with. Because at its core, radical acceptance is rooted in love and generosity. And that kind of acceptance is what will actually springboard you to experience serenity or inner peace, regardless of life's circumstances. Okay, so let's talk about you for a minute. You're a mom, and in a lot of ways, that's all I need to know, because moms do it all, don't we? One of the things moms are so good at is problem solving. We are excellent troubleshooters. I would bet that you know how to look at a problem and immediately come up with multiple solutions, and then instinctively know from experience which one is going to be most effective. And then you get her done. Mom's got this. Mom is in control. And every time you solve a problem and make life better for yourself and your family, you're positively reinforced over and over again to keep taking control. Think of all the ways you solve problems for your family every single day. If your kitchen stinks, so you take out the trash and your kitchen doesn't smell anymore, boom, positive reinforcement. You took control of the situation and it made the problem go away. It made things better. If your teenage daughter is always running late in the morning, so you have her start showering and picking out her clothes the night before, and now she's always on time to school, boom, positive reinforcement. You took control of the situation and it made things better. The issue is that as moms, we have gotten so good at controlling everything that we begin overgeneralizing to things that we simply don't have control over, resulting in lots of frustration and stress. Which is totally normal, by the way. If you're experiencing something unpleasant, it's completely natural to want to change the thing that's causing it. So when we are confronted with difficult realities that we can't change, for many of us, our instinct is to fight it or run away from it, which ultimately only extends the experience. There's a fantastic example from the natural world that illustrates this concept. Right in the middle of the United States is the Great Kansas Plains. Storms in this part of the country almost always come from the Rocky Mountains in the west and roll out towards the east. Cows can sense that a storm is coming from this direction, so they run east to get away from the storm, which seems like a perfectly logical thing to do and is in fact what most animals will do. And it doesn't really matter how fast they go, the storm catches up with them pretty quickly. Without knowing any better, the cows continue to try to outrun the storm. But instead of outrunning the storm, what do they actually end up doing? They run with the storm, maximizing the amount of time, pain, and frustration they experience in the storm. How many times are we like those cows trying to outrun a storm? We don't want to allow painful things to happen to us, so we reject them. And that is such a strong urge that we need a strong urge in the opposite direction, because all the efforts in the world will not change certain realities. What we need is to be like the buffalo. You see, what buffaloes do in a storm is very unique for the animal kingdom. Buffaloes wait for the storm, and as it approaches, they turn and charge directly into it. They run at the storm. And by running at the storm, what do they end up doing? They run straight through it, minimizing the amount of time, pain, and frustration they experience in the storm. Same storm, two totally different approaches and outcomes. My hope is that at this point, you're thinking, okay, I'm starting to get it. I don't want to be like the cows. So how do I actually practice radical acceptance? I am glad you asked. I would encourage you to start the same way I did, which is by reciting the poem Serenity Prayer. I invite you wherever you are to say these words aloud with me or in your mind as I recite them. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, you don't need to believe in God for this to be an effective tool. If it helps, you can completely remove that word. You could also replace it with universe or higher power. The point is that we are seeking peace to accept life's difficult realities, courage to do what we can to improve those realities, especially when it's hard, and wisdom to discern between what can and can't be controlled. I recite the Serenity Prayer every single day to help me shift into acceptance gear. Let's say it together one more time. And this time, I want you to have in your mind that top most pressing area that you're struggling with in motherhood that you identified at the beginning. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. If you had any impressions or thoughts come to mind, please take a moment to write those down. And if you're comfortable, even share those with us in a comment, because I'd really love to hear if any new solutions or thoughts came to mind that you might not have considered before. It seems like it would be pretty straightforward to just make a list of all the things that can and can't change in your life, or all the things I can and can't change, like the weather, not in my control, check, got it, move on. But it really does take wisdom to know the difference. Here's a short list I've made of some things that as a mom, I don't control, and what I do have control over instead. I don't have control of my children's behavior. I do have control over teaching and modeling appropriate behavior. I can't control my thoughts and feelings. I can control my response to them, whether I attach to them or act on them. I can't control things that have already happened. I can control what I do in the present. I can't control the outcome of anything I do. I can control the effort, planning, and time I put in. The list could go on and on. I invite you to take a minute to come up with an example of your own. And please share those with me in the comments. Even if you're watching this later, I will go back and read all the comments. I recognize that lots of situations are really nuanced, which again is why we need that wisdom to know the difference. So just take a minute and identify one thing that you don't have control over and what you can control instead. I'd love to hear what you come up with. So how do you know if you or someone else is struggling to accept reality? How do you know that you're not one of the cows trying to outrun the storm? There are actually some pretty obvious clues, and I invite you as I go over these to pay attention to your own inner dialogue, your thoughts and feelings, and even your body, and see if you relate to any of these. Some signs that you might be fighting reality are feeling bitter or resentful, having thoughts like it shouldn't be this way, this shouldn't be happening to me. It comes out in this attitude of general frustration with life. Everything's getting in your way. There's this irritability that everyone is doing everything wrong. Things are all to this or to that. There's no contentment with things as they are. Everything needs to be different or a certain way. I can just imagine the cows as they're running. The rain is beating down on them and they're cursing under their breath and muttering to themselves, "Why is this happening to me? You've got to be kidding me. I can't believe this." Or the recently popular, I can't even with this rain right now. When we're experiencing a lot of judgment, that may also be a sign that we're not accepting things as they are. So having emotionally charged opinions about what should or shouldn't be, or what's not fair, are other examples. Calling someone or something unbelievable, but not in the good way. And the biggest giveaway, labeling something as unacceptable or saying, "I can't accept this." You're also likely going to have some physical signs. These include tension in your neck and shoulders. Like I have right now. Let's all just roll our shoulders back and, roll our neck, loosen up. Others will be furrowing your brow, clenching your jaw or fists, and even crossing your arm over your chest translates in body language as defensiveness and resistance. So paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and even your body is going to clue you in to where you might be stuck and what's preventing you from experiencing the joy and peace that would otherwise be available to you. I'd love to hear which of those clues stood out to you. Maybe you find yourself saying some of those phrases frequently, or you know someone that fits that description. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on those. Like the buffalo's behavior, radical acceptance may feel very counterintuitive at first. But if you can't fully face the reality of what's happening, it's really hard to know what actions to take next. And then you may end up wasting a lot of time and energy trying to control things that aren't able to be controlled. James Baldwin said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." So acceptance is the starting point for any pursuit of change. I love to say that acceptance changes everything, which to me is the real beauty and paradox of acceptance. It's that only by accepting things as they are can you move into this wise mind place to see what change is going to unfold. Because we know that the only constant is change. And if a particular circumstance is permanent, like the death of someone you love, the thing that is going to change just might be you, your heart. The way you relate to the circumstance changes. Joan Rivers said, "Listen, I wish I could tell you it gets better. It doesn't get better. You get better." And from my experience this last year in losing my husband, I can absolutely testify to that truth. Being a widow hasn't gotten better, and I don't think it's going to, but I have. I have gotten better. I have changed in so many ways, and I have changed the way that I relate to being a widow. I like to imagine what the buffaloes are saying to themselves as they see the dark clouds approaching. As they're getting ready to charge straight into the storm, what do you think they're saying to each other? My husband was a lot like the buffalo. He was the one that taught me everything I know about acceptance through his own example. John had phrases he would say all the time, and after he died, I started calling them his Johnisms. I'd like to share some of those with you. And as I read these, try to imagine those buffaloes charging into the storm. Or imagine yourself turning to face a difficult reality head on. Could you say these things to yourself? Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's just my turn. Get better, not bitter. Why is this happening for me? Live life on life's terms. Feelings aren't facts. I'll interject that this one took me a very, very long time to understand, and I approached it with much resistance. No bad days. Everything is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Let go and let God. Get out of your own way. And lastly, and that's okay. These phrases have become tools in my radical acceptance tool belt. When I identify that I'm struggling with something or I'm feeling that natural urge to resist or fight reality, I pull out one of these tools and see how it can change my focus. Another favorite tool of mine is the willing hands pose, and I invite you to do it with me right now. It's a very simple gesture you can make with your hands, palms up, loosely cupped. If you're sitting down, you can rest your hands in your lap or on your legs or hold them out in front of you. You can do this standing with your arms at your side and your palms facing forward. And you can also do this laying down. This uses our mind-body connection to signal an openness or a willingness to accept what is. And it's particularly effective at reducing anger and frustration. And it can be done anytime. So for example, if you're having a conversation with your child or a partner, and it's starting to turn into a pretty emotionally charged disagreement, or maybe all of a sudden you realize that you're clenching your fists or you've crossed your arms over your chest, try replacing that body language with the willing hands pose and see how that signals to your brain to shift over into acceptance gear and look for new positive solutions. The promise of radical acceptance is changing distress into peace, and that is a realistic expectation. Inner peace isn't just for Tibetan monks or poets who go on solo backpacking trips through Alaska. Serenity is simply a state of physical and emotional calm that comes from within, not produced externally or contingent on outside factors like the circumstances of your life. But serenity doesn't always have to be the gauge of success for practicing radical acceptance. Typically, when we're experiencing something unpleasant, we still have the ability to focus on other things. But if our distress level is so elevated and constant, we can't even think about anything else. It's very challenging to focus on anything but the problem, the discomfort, the pain. And radical acceptance isn't always going to bring your stress or pain level down to zero, but it doesn't have to. If it can bring your discomfort down just enough to help you get into the right headspace, you will see the windows open to new solutions. A few years ago, my friend Ashley, also a mom of 4, stayed on a houseboat on Lake Powell when it was really windy, and she wrote about her debilitating experience that started on this vacation. Ashley said, "I came home from that trip and never quit rocking. It was like my head was banging around on a stormy sea 24/7. I'd lay down to sleep at night and my head would be rocking so bad I couldn't sleep. For the first time in my life, I started experiencing insomnia. The combination of lack of sleep and vertigo caused a terrible brain fog to set in. I started forgetting my groceries at the store. I couldn't remember the names of people I'd known for years. I even started running into walls because of the dizziness. Sometimes I was so dizzy, I was bedridden. I felt like I was falling apart. MRIs, CT scans, multiple doctors, and blood work found nothing. Desperate for answers, I spent thousands of dollars at an alternative brain treatment clinic. On the last day when the secretary told me, 'You're all done. Your treatment is complete,' I walked out of there feeling hollow. I wasn't better. The treatment didn't work, and I was still dizzy all the time, and no doctor could find anything wrong with me. One day I was listening to a podcast called Rock Steady, Healing Vertigo and Tinnitus Through Neuroplasticity. The presenter suggested, tonight when you go to sleep, instead of fighting the vertigo, just allow it to be in your body. I thought, what? Allow it to be there? All I had done up to this point was try to fight it or get rid of it. But I thought, okay, I'll try it. That night when I went to bed, I felt the usual banging of my head when I laid down, but for the first time, I didn't resist it. I just allowed the waves and feelings of up and down and all around to just be there. I distinctly remember feeling extra dizzy doing this, but over and over again, I just allowed the vertigo to be there. And then for the first time in months, I fell asleep in about 10 minutes. Today, Ashley is completely recovered from her vertigo. Her story is such a beautiful illustration of the power of not fighting reality. By choosing to allow her vertigo to just be, she wasn't approving of it or saying she liked it, and she wasn't giving up on searching for solutions. But she got into a wise mind place that allowed her to recognize, you can't control this. You've tried everything to fight this, and nothing is working. Why don't you see what happens when you just allow it to be? And Ashley learned, like I have, that acceptance changes everything. When John passed away, I didn't know what the future held for me. My life felt so clearly defined before that point, and then I was thrown into this whirlwind of uncertainty. I still don't know exactly what's ahead for me. But what I do know, without a doubt, is that I can face absolutely anything with confidence using the tools of radical acceptance. When things are out of my control, acceptance changes everything. When I don't know what to do next, acceptance changes everything. When I mess it all up and I'm certain I'm doing everything wrong in parenting my kids all on my own, acceptance changes everything. And I know it can do the same for you as well. Please find me on Instagram at The Acceptance Girl for more tips and tools. I would love to hear your feedback from my presentation today and personally support you in starting or maybe continuing your own journey of practicing radical acceptance. Thank you so much, Angela and American Mothers, for having me on today.
Oh, that was amazing. Lindsay, I loved that so much. I feel like I never wanted to be a buffalo.
Right?
That was such a great analogy. I think that will stick with me forever. And it's
Thank
just
you.
so perfect because, yeah, we're like the cows. We're afraid, so we move away from it and we're in it longer. That is such the perfect analogy. So I want to be a buffalo. But what incredible tools you've given us today. I feel like I want to watch this again and again. And it'll be on Facebook, so people can watch it again. But I feel like I want to, next time I have, well, we always have things all the time happening that we don't want to accept. But next time I have something really challenging, I want to just listen to this with that one thing in my mind and do all these things and just take more notes and really apply it. Because wow, acceptance changes everything. And I love the things you said at the end. When I feel like I'm a total mess, acceptance changes everything. When I don't know what to do, acceptance changes everything. Thank you for those powerful, powerful tools and for being with us today. That was a wonderful. Next week, our podcast will be with Deanne, and she'll be talking with Lene Tryon from Nebraska and Yolanda Perez from Puerto Rico. And she's going to be talking to us about how to help moms in our communities connect. They're going to outline the 6 steps to how we can do that. And in 2 weeks, our next speaker, because it's Mental Health Month, we'll be having Teresa Johnson speak to us about mental health through the lifespan. So that's going to be really interesting. But thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks so much, Lindsay. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful day.
The primary purpose of this is to educate and inform. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the American Mothers Mom to Mom are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of American Mothers Incorporated, its members, or employees. AMI is not responsible for, nor does it verify the accuracy of the information contained in the podcast, nor does the series constitute any professional advice or services. We look forward to visiting with you, one mom to another, next week. Until then, just do your best at mothering, and remember, you're not alone. You've got an army of mothers all around you cheering you on.